there's this like moment where before you kind of build the new thing, there's this real vulnerability around, am I like a one-hit wonder? Like, is this just going to be it, for my career? Like, can I really hit the jackpot twice and be successful twice? I think that there's really a moment of self-doubt before you start anything as an entrepreneur. It's before it's out in the world. It can feel very vulnerable.
Hi, everyone. It's Kara Goldin from The Kara Goldin Show, and I am so excited to have my next entrepreneur guest. Lovely, smart, exciting idea and female, of course, yay, entrepreneur here, Jessica Rolph, who is the co-founder and CEO of this amazing company called Lovevery. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it correctly.
You are.
Yay!
You are.
I love it. And let me tell you a little bit about Jessica first, and then we'll jump right in and get all kinds of dialogue going with her. But Jessica Rolph is the serial entrepreneur and co-founder and CEO of Lovevery. And it is a direct-to-consumer brand that you've probably seen it if you do not know what it is. And if you don't have smaller kids, as my kids have grown up, definitely you should have one of these around the house, because there's always kids that are coming through, and there are these amazing, beautiful kits that are just so fun and educational, and they've won all kinds of awards as well, and they're really geared towards child development through play. So definitely check them out if you haven't seen it. She's also a board member and founding partner of Happy Family. You may also know that product. It's an organic baby food company that she helped launch and build. And in a short space of time, they grew to more than 13 million in sales, and Inc. magazine listed them as one of the fastest growing companies in 2011. Jessica is just an amazing entrepreneur, learned so many lessons. So I'm very excited to have you here today. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Kara. It's so fun to be with you.
Really excited. So Jessica, let's jump right in. Tell me a little bit about where did little Jessica, who was she? Where did she grow up? All of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I'm a Minnesotan. I grew up in Minnesota. And, I think that as a child, I, kind of loved to take risks. But I wasn't one of those kids with a lemonade stand. My mom really encouraged me to take risks by as a third grader, I'd love to sing, and making an appointment with my teacher to ask if I could sing a solo. It was sort of like an arbitrary, but all this, I remember my heart pounding. And so I grew up in Minnesota, went to school in upstate New York, and then met my co-founder, Shazi, and we co-founded Happy Family based out of New York when we first started.
That's great. So you guys were college buddies.
We actually didn't know each other. So we had both been really passionate about the natural products industry. She had this great idea to do something different in the baby food space. At the time, it was really dominated by Gerber, and the jars were everything. Only 3% of all baby food consumed was organic at the time. And she wanted to create something that was more focused on nutrition and a really modern brand. And I was working at Whole Foods at the time and had a different idea in food that never panned out. And so I said, this woman that kind of loosely knew each of us said, you two should know each other. And so she connected us, and we really hit it off.
That's wild. And so was that your first job out of school, was Whole Foods, or what?
So yeah, I had actually, I worked at the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, as a paralegal, my first job out of school. I thought I wanted to become a lawyer, and really kind of wanted to help, I was sleeping in cardboard boxes to protest, in college, just the inequities, and, really kind of really had a lot of passion and heart for need, and couldn't imagine going into the business world. And so took a job. My first job was in the legal field and really trying to help. I volunteered as a as legal in the legal clinic for the homeless, and really felt like I was going to make my life there. And didn't do that well in the LSAT, which was actually a gift. Studied really hard, but did not do very well. It's a really hard test. And also, kind of had all the pamphlets of law school on my lap and just felt like this is not the path for me. It wasn't truly my calling. And so kind of, on a whim, moved to San Francisco and took a job in political consulting. And so I was writing research papers, like 400, page research papers. And then, really kind of discovered that I loved this intersection between business and society, business and social change. And so volunteered for this organization called the Full Circle Fund and took a job at an advertising agency that was doing some digital work that I was really inspired by, and created a vision that I wanted to become a social entrepreneur.
Interesting. And then how did you get to Whole Foods then?
Yeah, so I went to business school, and my now husband and I he had the idea to create a business for Lance Armstrong at the time that was a kind of like Newman's Own model. Like, how could we bring health and nutrition also paired with a nonprofit and feed the nonprofit with these important dollars that can come from like a for-profit business? And so we were writing the business plan and working on it, but the yellow bracelet campaign happened at the time. Remember those yellow plastic bracelets? And Lance Armstrong Foundation was like, we don't need to start a food company. We're minting money here and doing really well. And so I decided to take a job. I was getting my MBA and decided to take a job at Whole Foods, working for an organization called Spins, which I think back in the day, you probably bought data from Spins. And was there and got introduced to Shazi and was so longing to start a company, and was so grateful for that introduction to meeting my co-founder of Happy Family.
So tell me the story behind Happy Family.
Yeah, so Shazi had the idea for the business. And as I said, the space was just like, Gerber was dominating. There was only 3% of all baby food consumed was organic. And it was just like one of those kind of old industries. But there was all this new life and new intention from parents. And a lot of parents were struggling with making baby food homemade. And so she had an idea to make fresh baby food and really try and, make something better that parents could feel better about. And so I joined her, and very soon after, we learned that we could not produce fresh baby food at scale, that peas go bad, less than 7 days. And we just, the technology that was required was so expensive at the time. And so we decided to launch a frozen baby food. The retailers loved it. We got into Target as a test. It was so exciting. Got into Whole Food stores, but nobody knew that frozen baby food was in the frozen aisle. The baby food was in the frozen aisle, and really, it was a total flop. So we pivoted and launched some dry cereal and launched some puffs, and then started to finally kind of get some traction and build a brand that became a real alternative to a lot of the, sort of traditional brands that were selling jarred foods.
What was the hardest thing, looking back at Happy Family, what was the hardest thing about growing that brand?
Oh my gosh, what wasn't the hardest thing about that journey? I mean, honestly, there was so many, it was like everything was hard. And I think what was really hard was not having product market fit from the beginning. And, I think we did some testing, we did some focus groups, and we would hear from parents that they loved the fresh. We had this adorable cube tray, and people could pop out the peas and pop out the fresh carrots, and it looked so good, and retailers were excited about it. And so then to realize that we were a failure when we launched, and that it was not moving. I remember so we did the test at Target in the Midwest, and as I said, I'm from Minnesota, so my dad and I put all 24 stores on a map, and it was all over the state of Minnesota and some in Iowa, these test stores. And we literally drove around and just bought the baby food. It just cleared the shelves so we could stay and survive on shelf. And we were handing them out for free to parents, like, try this. Here's a free coupon for, free baby food. So my dad was kind of scanning the aisles, looking for anybody who was pregnant or had a baby. So it was just, I think, so hard when money's running out. You've kind of gotten these committed investors. You've done so much to get to where you are. And then to find that your first product launch isn't going to work. It's really scary.
Super scary. And so what did you do at that point?
Yeah, so we ended up really needing to pivot super quickly and we needed to buy time. So we
Mhm.
bought time by literally buying our own products. We
Yeah.
created a community marketing program where we had moms, going out and giving out like lots of free coupons
I
for,
remember
just to
that.
try it.
Yeah, which was a
Do
great
you?
idea. Yeah, I do. I remember it. I remember watching it. I mean, you really like grabbed the community and armed them, right? So you
Yeah.
guys did an excellent job of that.
Well, we hustled. We really hustled. And then I think pivoting to figuring out how we could launch something in the dry aisle that would then point people to the frozen aisle. So we had these little coupons that we put on top of our cereal that was probiotic and different and, DHA. It wasn't quite the total revolution that we were hoping for. It wasn't from the jar to this like fresh frozen cubes, but it was an evolved cereal. And then, kind of like think outside the jar, look in the freezer, trying to point people to the frozen baby food. And so to again, buy us some time. At the time, we got so lucky because Earth's Best, the big cereal
Hmm.
manufacturer in Whole Foods, went out of stock. They had some supply problem that lasted months. And this was the exact moment that we entered the market. So remember just getting, like feet of shelf space just from nowhere for us because of this out of stock issue. And so we really got that break. And then it gave us the momentum to be able to, kind of continue and raise more money and figure out how to get into more dry snacks. And then eventually the pouch, which became a really popular way for parents to be able to have convenient food, but also really healthy food, mix of fruits and vegetables. We put some, you know, we put some salba, which is like a chia, into the pouch, which was really unique and different, and coconut oil and some different things. And so that really propelled our brand, and we were scaling from there.
That's
But there
awesome.
were some really scary times in the early days.
I can only imagine as a founder. I mean, it's just everything sounds right on the outside. I mean, you guys are just growing, everything's great. As I share with so many people, I think that there are so many founders that are going through their own private hell, right? That you're driving around and, oh, I just want to hang out with my dad while I'm driving around. You're trying to pull the stuff and maybe even uh, raise a family at the same time while you're doing all of this. It's just I can only imagine how nutty it is, and in the end, you guys were acquired, right?
Yes, we were acquired by Group Danone, and it was really exciting. I mean, between launch in 7 years, we got the company to 63 million in sales, and
Amazing.
we were acquired by Group Danone, which was really special for us because we were so aligned with their vision for where they wanted to take the company and their values orientation. So it was like really, it was a really great day when that
That,
happened.
that's awesome. Did they just reach out to you, or were you surprised when that happened, or had you actually hired a banker or?
We had my co founder and I had both developed a relationship with Seth Goldman
Mhm.
from the original founder of Honest Tea, who now has some cool new alternatives to beef jerky in his new company as mushroom jerky. It's really cool. You should check it out. But we had both known him separately. And then he was very supportive and an early investor. He invested $2,500 in our first round of financing at Happy Family. And I will say, like, just having very low or no minimums can really make a difference to just cobbling
I
together that
agree.
seed capital.
Yeah.
I am like a huge proponent of very low or no minimums. But then Seth introduced us to Gary Hirschberg of Stonyfield. And Gary was with Danone. And so we developed, kind of this ongoing relationship with Gary. And Danone actually had looked at maybe investing in us early, but then we had this sort of ongoing relationship and we're able to, when it was time to sell, we were able to really, lean in and make that process work. But it was a competitive process. There were a lot of competitive baby food companies at the time.
Yeah.
There was, a lot of companies that kind of were scaling at the same time. It was really intense. And so we felt really fortunate to have been able to align with Group Danone.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's a great product, and you should be so proud that you guys had developed this and successfully sold it. And then you decided to go into the children's product space, totally go jump into out of food into this new industry. So what were you thinking? I mean, what was kind of the where was your head on thinking about developing this?
Yeah, I really felt like I wasn't finished, first of
Hmm.
all. Like I just had so much. And I think maybe part of it is, just kind of like this experience of building happy family. I felt like I learned so much and I just wanted to, continue with my career. And I had this personal experience that was really moving for me. So I had three children of my own, and I felt so good about what I was feeding them. I was feeding them all like organic, healthy foods. And I found myself on the floor with one of my babies. And you might remember this, Kara, like those plastic light up toys with
Hmm.
all the stuff. You push one button and all of a sudden, like a purple cow pops out, lights are flashing, music's playing. And, I was really craving a moment of connection with my baby. And instead, I felt like disconnected. And I also found myself wondering, what was this toy and all the toys in his playroom, for frankly, doing for his development? Because I think we're starting to hear, and I think that the message was starting to get out at the time, that the early years do matter. So there's this
Hmm.
public policy, public service message. It's like 80% of the brain is developed by age 3, and the early years matter. And half of who we become is based on those early years and those early experiences that we have. And, the other half is, there's genetics obviously plays a part, but your environment plays a big part. And so I felt really good about the nutrition piece, but there was like this big empty sort of like unknown around cognitive development. And so I discovered this really nerdy doctoral thesis written on infant brain development. And I started doing these activities with my babies and getting rid of all the toys that we had and sort of making my own, and like just finding so much joy and connection in really understanding what they wanted to learn. It made me feel like a good mom, frankly, like a confident parent. And so I started dreaming about when we had sold Happy Family, I started dreaming about, okay, like what would it look like to have something that's really more of like a system and a support system for parents that kind of builds on Happy Family. Like we were very much a support for early nutrition, but what if it felt more holistic around brain development? And so, developed this concept for a stage-based learning program that, really didn't exist before. So it was really exciting.
I love it. It's actually, thinking about it, it really is a natural progression. I mean, it's interesting with Hint. For me, health really started with what I was putting in my body, but then I started to really think about the customer journey and about how, things like sunscreen and things like we've gone into other categories. Sometimes that's where people enter, right? Maybe people were not um, we're not kind of thinking about the about baby food and better for you baby food, but then they're thinking about the toys and about the better for you brain development. And then I think just building on kind of what you were doing and how people were uh, you know feeling about the product, and I think it totally makes sense on lots and lots of levels. So I love it. There tons of science behind your products too, as I dug into some of that. So, and how did you go about going and getting kind of the science side of the the research
Yeah,
for the product?
that's a great question. And I think even before then, it's there's this like moment where before you kind of build the new thing,
Hmm.
there's this real vulnerability around, am I like a one hit wonder? Like, is this just going to be it? For my career, like, can I really hit the jackpot twice,
Yeah.
and be successful twice? And I think that there's really a moment of self doubt before you start anything as an entrepreneur. It's before it's out in the world. It can feel very vulnerable. But I think for me, I just felt so compelled by what you talked about by this mission. And I think that for career transitions, it's very much about like keeping one foot in, like where you have knowledge and success. Like with you understand the marketplace of how to sell things. You know how to make products that are differentiated and you know how to sell things. But then also taking a foot and putting it into a new territory and taking a risk. So for me, it was very much like I understood early life. I knew that parent and what they wanted because I was one of them.
Yeah.
But then it's also taking this leap into a whole nother, for us, it's really direct to consumer and really understanding how to build a subscription stage-based business that is not at retail. That was all the new learnings for me and my co-founder. So my new co-founder at Lovevery, Rod. So to answer your question, we definitely are, we're very much research backed. There's so much science on early life that is not reaching parents. So, you have these appointments with your pediatrician, but they're focusing on the health of the baby.
Yeah.
Frankly, like, you have multiple children, you kind of forget, like, even, not only do you have your first and you have no idea what to do, but then even when you have your second or your third, you're like, what was the stage again? It kind of feels like you sort of have like amnesia from like, I can't remember what it was like to, go through all these stages. And so I think for us, there's so much research. There were so many partners. We partner with OT professionals, PT, speech therapists. We have neuroscientists who just study how babies learn math. And there's actually a lot of innate learning that babies already have when they're born about numeracy. It's fascinating. And then how do you build on that? So there's a lot of research there. It's very easy to kind of access it. It's just not really reaching parents in a practical, actionable way.
So interesting. So you're 100% direct to consumer. You are not doing retail at this
We
point.
are about, north of 80% of our business is direct to consumer because that's what we want is this ongoing relationship with parents. Our strategy for launching the company was to not launch the early learning program from the beginning because we really wanted to kind of like really understand how the brand was going to resonate and how we had this insight that there was a product, the Play Gym. You probably had them for your
Yeah.
kids. They hadn't changed much since when your kids were little. It's a cluttered category, but it's such an opportunity for an early learning. It's such an early learning opportunity. And if you can make it nuanced and stage based and really kind of change that product, you can really offer this platform for learning for the first year. And so we launched that product on Amazon and direct. And so we were able to build our brand awareness through the Amazon platform because it's a highly registered for item. We had product market fit from the beginning. It was such a relief. I felt like I learned so much from my Happy Family experience, did not want to relive that. So we took a while and a lot of testing before we launched. And, kind of applied all the learnings from Happy Family to this new venture. And so we were really able to get the Play Gym out. It became number one in revenue within a year on Amazon in a very crowded category. And then that became really kind of the platform for for our early learning program because people really trusted our brand and kind of loved the Play Gym.
I love it. So how do you think your business changed through the pandemic? And how were your customers, were they different than they were 15 months ago, or at least how you looked at them? I mean, did you feel like did you see a dramatic shift in kind of their behavior in any way?
Yeah, I mean, before the pandemic, my co-founder and I were seeing a lot of brand awareness growing. So we were really, really kind of cranking on the revenue generation side and on trying to figure out, this machine of building a direct-to-consumer company, around content building and all of the ways that we wanted to have touch points with parents. The pandemic was such a big deal for parents in particular. They had children underfoot. They were trying to work. Schools were closed. Daycares were closed. And so it was a really exceptional opportunity for us to have that openness of wanting to try something. So it was a real accelerator for our company. It was also the fact that from a kind of more technical back end side, CPMs or the cost to acquire customers was really low, and so we were able to take advantage of that. And we had very strong retention metrics, meaning we were really keeping our customers the same pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. So once you became a customer, you wanted to stay a customer. For us, what we saw this shift, which was really exciting, was we shifted really deeply into the mass market. So our fastest growing segment are families that are making less than 50,000 a year. We saw, the really like the scale of the business and this diversity and geographically expand through the pandemic. And it was a really kind of accelerator for us in terms of getting to mass with the brand.
So interesting. So it's not, you can't look at your product and your product sales as being on the coast, as people always say, that those are the people that are, whatever, more educated, we threw that out the door as well. I mean, it was very much scattered throughout the US for sure, and where people want better products. And I think that clearly I can see that happening with yours as well. So you've founded a couple of companies now. What do you think are the like key things that you've learned, or maybe that you did differently this time?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that the key things that I've learned is just the power of partnership
Mm-hmm.
and co-founding a company. So my co-founder Shazi in the first business, we just there's that sort of that early, all those early challenges, having somebody who's, you can think through problems together was just really powerful. What I learned, when Shazi and I first started, I was 49%, she was 51. It was her idea, to build the company, from a lot of perspectives, it was incredibly generous of her to invite me in at 49%.
Mm-hmm.
With Lovevery, I wanted to actually be equal with my co-founder. So when Rod and I became partners, we decided that we were going to do 50-50. And so that's been kind of an interest, just I think a very subtle shift, but it actually represents a lot in terms of how kind of we behave as co-founders. And, I think practically speaking, both co-founders need to kind of agree on what you're going to build together and go forth together. And that's very much, Shazi and I would always get there and we'd always have healthy debate. It was like really so fun to build that company with her. I think with Rod and me, there's just, I could think after being number two and knowing how that feels, I really wanted him to be feeling like I really wanted an equal partner in the business. And so that was a big kind of, I think, learning for me. And I think, we've been incredible partners. He's running a lot of the revenue generation and I'm running a lot of the product development. And we really are a great pair that way.
Now, but you're the CEO of the company.
I am the CEO. Yes.
Got
So it
it.
was my idea and I am the CEO. He's the president. With Happy Family, I was a COO. Shazi was a CEO. So, so there's always there's the different roles, but I think that there's kind of in the foundation of the business. I think for me, it was important to kind of build from an equity standpoint, equality.
Definitely. So what is some of the best advice that you heard about, throughout your journey and being an entrepreneur? Maybe even advice that you don't think is necessarily true today in building two companies in two different industries.
Oh, the best advice. I mean, I think that the best advice that I've heard that I would continue to stand behind is just obsession with your customer.
Hmm.
And so now I think that we are in this really special place with Lovevery where we've been listening and then building products to now we are in a place of truly kind of co-creating with our customers.
Hmm.
And so we have this book, every play kit comes with a book that we've developed, and it's based on kind of Montessori principles of real photography, real stories. Children love them. One of our play kits has a story of a little boy skinning his knee at the park. And, it's like, and he gets an owie and it's a big owie. And there's some, we retouch some blood into that knee and it's like the children's favorite page. They just want to linger on that page. And 1 and 2 year olds just really, really want to talk about getting hurt. And they want to know about how Max
So
felt. And it's like
interesting.
very relatable to them. And so we developed these books and we put it out there that we are really excited to hear from our customers. Do they have ideas for books or stories that have not yet been told? And so we heard from our customers that, we had, really kind of, we're telling a lot of stories, but we were missing a really important story. And that was a story of Indigenous nations and the Native American story. And so very much like books can be mirrors to children, like Max getting hurt in the park and, skin knees, and they can relate to that mirror, that frame of seeing themselves in that moment. Books can also be a window into another culture, another world, if you can find a way to relate. And so we partnered with a parent of a 3-year-old who's a member of the Coeur d'Alene tribe. And it's a story of Adela coming home. And she gets to put on her regalia with her grandmother and her mother, and they smudge and they go on a canoe ride. And she gets to, play the drum and have some sort of really kind of be in her homeland. But every child can relate to getting dressed up And so Adela gets to wear lipstick, and we
Oh,
have,
I love
just
it.
this like this photo of Adela getting lipstick applied, and she's in her regalia, and all 3-year-olds love to get dressed up. And so they can really relate to that story. Another story is a customer came to us and said, so that story of indigenous cultures was really driven by our customers. They were asking us for this story to be told, that we were missing this story. Another example is a customer came to us, her daughter's a limb difference. And she said, I want to tell my daughter's story. We don't know why, but she was born with one leg much shorter than the other. She has a prosthetic leg, and I want to tell her story. And so we co-authored a book with her, flew down, did photography of her and her daughter meeting a girl at the park named Pearl, who in this story, and it was a fictitious story, but it was kind of mirroring what little Alora had experienced, was very curious and kind of inappropriate. You know how kids can ask inappropriate questions about other
Yeah.
people's bodies?
Yeah.
And so she was asking these inappropriate questions and wanting to touch Alora's prosthetic leg. And so it was really kind of like helping this parent kind of tell her daughter's story. And it was so special. And it's like this co-creation with customers that I think is really fueling our growth from here. It's really like a deep partnership. And I think that obsession with our customers and that obsession with testing and really understanding them led to us being able to kind of do this next level of co-creation.
So interesting. So, do you feel like the obviously retail as we saw Toys R Us a few years ago go bankrupt, and other retailers that are out there. Do you think that consumers are really looking for? Uh, they're kind of doing a lot more research when they're making these decisions, and I mean, how do you think? What is the future of
Yeah.
this industry? And I mean, I'm talking pretty broadly around toys too, but I feel like people are more and more looking for stuff that is going to, help expand conversations, help our kids be more and more creative. I mean, things that I think people are feeling today as adults are things that could help them even with mental health, with ways to connect, have EQ, and I mean a lot of what you're talking about. I think that it really lays out the early development necessary in order to live a happier life.
Yeah. And I think that there's just no more important kind of intention as a parent than to give your child the best.
Totally.
That spans income, that spans demographics, that spans geography, that spans everything. It's just a human kind of desire to give your child the very best. And I think that that means you need to have a direct emotional connection to these companies and these services and these products that are helping guide you in those important early years. And you need to know that the company founders care about, climate change and like care about the world that your child is going to grow up in, 30 years from now, right? And that the toys that they're playing with aren't actually, contributing. They might be wood, but they're actually sustainably forested. That you feel like you understand that they're empathetic and that they have this kind of right voice, and that there's a real desire, I think, for a human connection. I think that's what we're finding with this new economy. Parents are looking for a nerdy edge. They want the details. They want to know, they really care, and they want to know more and feel connected to these products that they're bringing into their lives. So I think that the time of sort of disconnected, I'm just going to, buy a toy and see if it's fun, or there's a time and a space for that, parties and
Totally
other
agree.
things. But when you're talking about holding a parent and a child through those early years and like building parent connection with their child and actually helping them feel confident, it's just very intimate. And so I think that for us, it's like our direct relationship with our customers, our subscription model, which is like a popular business model now, is essential to our mission. It's key to being able to fulfill our desire to really partner with parents and help them through those early years.
I love it. So, talk to people a little bit about your subscription model.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's really, it was the sort of the we feel very lucky that like subscription businesses became popular. Because if you think about it, I really sort of had this idea to create an early learning program.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, subscription businesses were starting to trend. And it was so great because people were familiar with this sort of ongoing, payments and ongoing relationship with the company, stage-based, for us was so essential. Like we are there for you for every stage of your child's development. So subscription is sort of key because children develop, at very kind of predictable windows. There's a lot that's in common about early childhood. And so we want to if we can go deep in each stage, we can be there with the next play kit, with the next set of information. So I think it was really lucky that, people were also buying razors by subscription and buying things on Amazon by subscription and,
getting hint by subscription. So
exactly. Getting hints deliveries by subscription and feeling confident that it was like going to show up when you were running out. So I think that, sort of behavior was really helpful for us because, subscription was so core to who we wanted to be for the parent.
And plus, kids at any age want to get one new thing, right? Or a grouping of new things, and to show up and actually get mail. I mean, I remember, actually getting mail as a kid, that was, that was gold, right? I mean, to actually get something new and you want to open the box and I think that is it's just brilliant, right? That it's not something that you actually have to go in your car and go to a store. I mean, instead, you get somebody on subscription program, you know that it's going to be healthy and better for them, and they're going to learn something in the activity. And also, I felt like you're also showing an opportunity for play with a parent, right? Or somebody else a babysitter or whatever, where you can be creative and let your imagination run. So it's such a good item. I highly recommend it for everybody. So it's super, super cool. So where can people find more information about Lovevery, and then also just about you and your company?
Yes. So if you have a child between the ages of 0 and 4, we have a weekly stage-based email that you can sign up for. That's really kind of, again, that nerdy edge and that content. So it's at lovevery.com, lovevery.com. And then we offer our stage-based learning kits there as well. So we've got sort of the About Us section, and then like why we started the company, but then also, a lot of kind of content that's free for parents to help them understand what's happening with their child's development.
I love it. So, so, so great. Well, thank you so much for disrupting this industry and disrupting the baby food industry too. I absolutely love talking to you about this because I think that, the sky's the limit on what everyone can do if you really set your mind to it, and doing something with purpose that actually makes the world better in some way, which is what you've done twice now, is just really, really awesome. And I think more than anything, as I was sharing with you earlier, I hope my podcast, the guests that I'm bringing on, really shares what is possible, and that you don't have to be in the same industry or go do it again in the same industry. You can go switch industries. It really is about the idea and your ability to actually execute on that idea and build a team that you've proven out. So thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening to this episode 2 of the Kara Goldin Show. We're here every Monday and Wednesday, and definitely check out my social on Kara Goldin on all social channels, and hopefully you've had a chance to purchase my book, Undaunted: Overcoming Doubts and Doubters, on Amazon and lots of other fine bookstores. And of course, pick up your favorite case of hint water on our website or in lots of stores all over the place. And thank you, everybody, and goodbye for now.